So in the first video, we looked at creating the database to begin with, at creating the underlying tables, and the tables are the repository of information. Then we looked at creating a form which lets you enter information one case at a time into those tables, rather than trying to go into the table manually and add information. You can have this form which gives you structure. Now, what happens if you want to import a whole bunch of information at once? Say your organization or your business has been running on spreadsheets. You've done everything with Excel spreadsheets, and now it's just too big, and now you've decided to switch to the database. Well, you don't want to have to go into the form and enter those one at a time. Who knows? You could have hundreds or even thousands of records. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use an import function, and there's two ways of doing it. One, if you click on the external data and then Excel, this will open the import wizard, okay? There's a second way of doing it. The reason why there's two ways is that as a database manager, you have access to all these tools. When you shut off the ribbon up here, you might still want your end users to be able to import data en masse. And so there is a way of creating a form that lets them upload. So effectively it does the same thing as what we're about to look at, but it does it as a built-in command rather than having all these prompts. So let's take a look at this. So external data, you can see it says import and link. So we're going to actually import the data. Excel. Now this is very important. Import the source data into a new table. Now, if you don't have a table, then you're going to want to do that. You're going to import to a new table. But say you've got 7, 8, or 9 spreadsheets all meant to be combined into one table. Well, you'd create one table, but as you enter the subsequent spreadsheets, you would choose this, append a copy of the results to the table. So say there's 7 out there. You'd run this process 7 times. The first one, you create your table, and then the remaining 6, you would append to the table that you created the first time. So just go out to Browse and go to the name of the spreadsheet you're using and click on OK. First row contains column headers. May or may not. All depends how you have it set up. More than likely it probably does. You'll know just by looking at it. Like this has employee name and employee number. And you can just put a check there. Click on Next. Now, this is very important. So what you can do, there's only 2 columns, so it seems unnecessary, but you can actually look at each column and decide whether or not you want it. Say it says do not import this field, so I could skip that one. All right, I don't want that for some reason. Maybe they're blanket columns. Maybe it's information you just don't need. But you do have the ability to not import fields. Also, you have the ability to convert. So Access will look at the data and try to make a decision as to what it is, but you have the ability to override that. So for instance, this is short text and that is fine, but maybe it's a number and it says, okay, it's an integer or it's a long integer or it's a double, but maybe if it's a number that's, say it's a social security number, well, it's a number, but you don't want it to be mathematically manipulated, so you'd probably actually import that as like short text. Likewise, some numbers like employee identification numbers, they may be number only without any letters. So even though it's a number, again, if you're not doing a mathematical computation with it, you may want to actually import it as a text even though it's a number. So you can just click on the various columns, change the data type as necessary, choose to import it or not, and then you go to Next. Now we're going to skip this for now. We're going to say no primary key. This lets you add a primary key, which we're not going to do. For now, we'll just say no. And then you click on Next. And it says, congratulations, it's done. You just have to name it. This name, it's pulling from the tab of the spreadsheet that you're pulling in. So we didn't see that, but if the spreadsheet has multiple tabs, you can actually choose which tab you want to import. So this is just the name of the tab you're importing. That's why it's saying Sheet 1, because that's the name of the tab. So you can change this to, I think it was Employee IDs. Finish. You can save the import steps, but I already skipped that. And over here, the employee IDs just opened up. And so you got employee name. By the way, all I did was point, and that little split line shows up. I click, and I just drag that to open that up to make it wider, that's all. And even that change is actually considered a structural change. So if you try to close, you'll get a prompt. But anyway, so there's the employee name, employee number. But say you had a second one, a second spreadsheet. So let's close this. There's the prompt I mentioned. We'll go to Excel. And say even though it's the same one, we'll just pretend it's a different one for demonstrative purposes. And this is what I was saying. Well, we don't want to create a new table. We already have our table, but we got to put more into it. So now we chose append a copy records to a table. And in this case, it's employee IDs. We'll do OK. And because we've already defined column names, it doesn't give you the choice. It's saying, okay, these are the columns that you've already defined in this table. So you have no choice but to have those be the column names, the column headings. And then it's being imported into employee IDs, and we'll finish. Again, we can close, skip that. Now if you go here, there you go. It imported it into it. There's certain things to be cognizant of, such as making sure that the column names match when you're trying to import a spreadsheet. You need to have matching columns, and there's things like that that you need to be mindful of. So that's basically how you use the built-in wizard to import a spreadsheet. And again, this is something that you, the DBA, would do. But if you want your end users to use it, once you shut off the ribbon, you shut off the view to the table, and that all they see are, say, like the form to import the case, there is we haven't gotten into it yet, but there's something known as Visual Basic, and it's coding that you can use to make things happen, such as importing data, but that's really a more advanced one. I just wanted to show you how to use the wizard, how to import data. Just as we created this form, you could create a form linked to this one and import data to this as well manually once you've done your mass import. So you imported all your data that was pre-existing, and now going forward, your business as usual, you would manually input the new associates, the new employees using a form. In addition to spreadsheets, you can also import from text files. So let's go ahead and close this table, and now we'll click on text file. Go to Browse, and now instead of seeing the spreadsheets, you see the text files because of that choice. If you notice down here in the lower right corner, it shows you your filter. So click on Employees, click on Open. Now, we don't want to create a new table. Again, we said we're trying to append this information to the pre-existing table, the one we created just a couple minutes ago. So put the dot next to Append a Copy, choose Employee IDs, choose OK. And now it's going to look a little bit different. Delimited, characters such as comma or tab separation. In this case, I actually used a tab, okay? And this is fixed width. You can base it on spacing. Almost invariably, this is probably what's going to be used, at least my experience, that people will do the delimiting based on a comma or some other field, or some other, shouldn't say field, some other symbol. So now, in this case, it's a tab, and if you notice, it now split it automatically. And again, first row contains field names, so we'll put the check there. And we don't want a text qualifier, so that would be like, say, it's separated by quotes or something like that, which is also very important when you export data. You don't want to add quotes if not necessary. So next, employee IDs is the table we said we want it to be imported in. Finish. Close. Now let's go back there. And there you go. So these are the two new ones added from that file. So again, you don't have to manually enter all your pre-existing data. You can import it using the wizards, and like I said, we're going to get into another way of importing data later on, something that you can make accessible to your end users. Say instead of like a case database, maybe it's a database that processes information, creates like a report for your end users. Well, you'd want them to be able to upload their spreadsheet and then generate the report and then export the report. So that's one of the reasons, one example, why you'd want someone to be able to import information. But again, you don't want to give them all the tools of the database. You don't want them to be able to break the database and delete tables and things like that. So what you can do is you can shut off the table view, and you can shut off the ribbon at the top. So that shows you how you can import data. We did a few examples as far as creating a new table, importing into the same table, importing from a spreadsheet, importing from a text file. So I think that's about it. If you have any questions, feel free just to put into the comments.